What's up? I'm Jack Reese and welcome back. If you're new to this channel, this is all about the things that I wish I knew a couple of years ago, centered around finance, money, budgeting. If these are things that interest you, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more. This video in particular is all about how to save money using effective strategies. We're not going to waste any time. Let's get straight into it. So, there are two ways that you can increase your savings. You can either increase your income or decrease your expenses. And I know that it may be more difficult for people to increase their income, especially if you're working a 9 to 5 that does not allow you to get overtime. But if you can increase your income by getting a part-time job, starting a small business, or working more hours, this would increase your ability to save. Granted, you're not affected by lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is when your income increases and so do your expenses. All of a sudden you start to see faults in the car that you originally owned and you start to justify reasons why you might need to buy a new one. Or you tell yourself that with a certain level of success you need to keep up a certain image, so you buy more clothes, more jewelry, or buy a bigger house. But if you can increase your income without increasing your expenses, you can maximize your ability to save. The strategy that might be faster to implement is reducing your expenses. And the first step to doing so is by creating a budget. If you're unfamiliar how to do so, check out my previous video that outlines exactly how to create a budget. When you create a budget, this will help you identify where majority of your spending is going so that you can make a conscious effort to cut back on some of those expenses. Your budget will help you identify whether you could afford to buy as opposed to rent a house, or whether you could purchase a car or you might need to take public transportation. And some people might think that buying is always the ideal situation, but that might not be the case. Let's say for instance you don't have the money to buy your car, or you don't have money set aside that just in case something goes wrong with that car, it might be more financially wise to take public transportation. After you create your budget, you want to set a goal for an achievable amount of money in a realistic amount of time. If you check your budget and know you could only afford to save $500 a month, there is no way you can save $5,000 in 3 months unless you make some changes. So you want your goal to be realistic and achievable. And you might be saying to yourself that you've created your budget, you set your goals, but you still can't seem to increase your savings. This is where you want to work on your impulse spending. Whenever you want to make a purchase, always wait 1 day to 1 week before finalizing that transaction. Because with a little bit more time, you might determine that that purchase was not worth it. And that might be the key to saving you a lot of money. There's a lot of studies that show that the more time you take to think about a purchase, the less likely you are to make it. And this is the reason why a lot of salespeople want you to make a decision on the spot, because they know that if you leave, you're less likely to come back and buy that item. But if you take that time and you understand that this purchase is worth it, by all means go ahead and make it. What you don't want is you make a purchase based on impulse spending and then you regret that decision afterwards. Another thing that I think about that prevents me from making some bad purchases is thinking about the amount of time I would need to work in order to get enough money to buy that item. So I might want a phone, but it might take me an entire month of work in order to get enough money to buy that phone. When I think about it this way, it might not be worth it, because if my boss tells me that I would work an entire month and at the end of that month he would give me a phone, I might realize that that's not worth it. For me personally, anytime I have to work for an entire week of blood, sweat and tears just to buy one item, it's not worth it for me. Or you could think about the opportunity cost had you not buy that phone. If you think about the money that you could have gained had you used the money that you're going to pay for this phone on an investment, technically that's money you're losing out on as well. Or if you think about how closer to your goal you would be had you put that money on savings or paying off debt, then you might start rethinking some of the purchases that you make. This might be an extreme way of thinking, but it helps you understand the value and the potential value of money, and this is important to help you increase your saving. If if after all this understanding of money and finance, you still find yourself making purchases that you regret, maybe because your money demon is strong and you tell yourself that you only live once and you might as well enjoy it, but you don't think about the stress that comes with not being able to pay your rent, not having financial freedom. Personally, I want to enjoy my money when I've set myself up for success, but not everyone have that mindset of delaying their gratification. So, if you still struggle, your first step is acceptance. It sounds like an AA meeting. My name is Jacques and I'm a shopaholic. People who struggle continuously with shopping, their best strategy is to create barriers between them and spending. What this might look like is creating a separate savings account that does not have a bank card associated with it, so that it's not as easy to spend money by swiping aimlessly. You can also make this a high interest savings account so you get some return on the money that you're storing up. And by making this a separate account, you get to track how much money you save each month. To make this even more effective, you can set up an automatic withdrawal from your paycheck to go into that savings account. So without even thinking about it, money is being placed into savings before you have access to spend it. Other ways you could create barriers that could prevent you from overspending is by giving majority of your money to your spouse. Granted that they are not as bad at spending as you are. Or you could give your money to your parents, and obviously there's an age limit here. You don't want to be 30 years old and still giving your parents money to hold. Although I do know a lot of grown people that still give their parents their birth certificates and passports so that they don't lose them. Another effective way to guarantee saving is by using a susu. A susu is a concept used a lot in the Caribbean, where you make continuous payments over a set period of time, and by a rotating system, each member of that susu gets a payout of a bulk of money. For a simple example, let's say 3 people decide to join a susu. Each member pays $100 per month. This means that on month 1, one of those members receives $300, on month 2, another one receives $300, and in month 3, the last member receives $300. Note that this is a savings concept. You put in $100 over a 3-month period. The total amount you put in is $300. The amount you get back in return is the same $300. The reason why people might choose to do this is because it might be easier for them to save after they've already agreed to make that monthly payment, as opposed to saving that $100 each month on their own that they might be tempted to spend. And this is why a susu should be done with trusted family and friends, because you don't want someone to receive the first payment of $300 and then disappear and not continue their payments. Remember, I said that this is a saving concept. What you put in is what you get out. This is not an investment. I know in Trinidad and Tobago right now there's a concept going around that they say is similar to a susu, where you make a one-time payment and then you receive more money than you put in, with the contingency that you recruit at least 2 other people. For this to be legit, that would mean someone will need to take the pool of funds, invest it externally, multiply that money, and then pay each individual member of that susu based on the return of that investment. If this is not happening and the only way money is coming into the susu are from when members join, then the only way to get out more money than you put in, it has to be at the expense of some members in the susu. And this is why I suspect there's a high recruitment mentality, because if people stop coming in, there's no way you could get that increase on your money that they promised you. And if that susu ends, there will be people who will have to bear a loss. So there may have been people you know that have benefited from the system, but there's no way that everyone that joined this concept will benefit. There will be some people that needs to bear the loss. And I know some people who are fine benefiting at the expense of others, but if you're not one of those people, when you're making an investment, always understand how that money is being multiplied. Otherwise, stay away from these schemes. If you might have benefited from something that I had to share in this video, go ahead and like, comment and subscribe, and share it with someone else who might need to hear this. Check out the description below for more information, and until next time.